Uh, that's a
Marty,
relative term.
I was very confused this morning.
Why?
Because you usually do Psuke de Zimra.
You're right, because he asked somebody to do fine. He asked somebody else to do shopping. The guy told him no.
I mean, I thought I was turning the pages the wrong direction.
Okay, Rabosai. Up until now, according to Rashi, we learned we had a machlokus yesterday. First of all, where are we? Ibailu. Second line, Ibailu. No, yeah, second line, Ibailu. Yeah, Ibailu. So yesterday we learned we had a machlokus. We have Shimon Gamliel and the Tanakh. The way we learned, according to Rashi today, that Shimon Gamliel holds that once it comes time to pay, there's no consideration. You sell it and goodbye, Charlie. He doesn't have to leave him any basic needs. And the Tanakh holds you have to leave him his basic needs. But now we want to flesh it out. The Ibailu, that was the question. Does the person have to evaluate when you're collecting from a debtor, in this case, it says creditor? Okay, do we evaluate and leave him his basic needs or not? Why? Because let's take a look. The rule by Arachin is what? When you say, the Arachin member is the set price. There's two ways to donate to the Beis Hamikdash. You can say you're giving $100, or you're giving the value of something. You give the money value, damin. You're giving the value of something. Or you could say what? I'm giving an erkacha. The erkacha is a set price, is a menu. So much for a man, so much for a woman. It's a set price. So the rule by erkacha, it's clear that if the guy he said he is going to give such money, and it comes out, and then when it comes time to collect, he doesn't have it. So the halacha is that they collect what he has and they leave him his basics, and he doesn't owe anything anymore. And it's over. He doesn't know anything. Even if he becomes rich, he doesn't know anything anymore. But if a person, and it's also true that if a person donated, let's say, to the Beis Hamikdash, not as an erkacha, if he doesn't have the money, okay, so he'll take what he's got, you understand? But when he gets the money, he still has to pay. One thing, he still has to pay. But where's the question? Okay, he still has to pay. Only thing is, we'd have to debate in a minute whether the rule of leaving him his basic needs applies or doesn't apply. But for sure, the rule of leaving basic needs applies by an erkacha. We want to know if that rule applies, like we said yesterday, by a debtor. Yeah.
If you are poor when you start, when you make the pledge, you're poor when you pay.
It's coming up.
What happens? Yeah, but it coming up if you're rich, but what happens if you're poor and become rich?
It's coming up. I think Gemara. It's coming right up. Okay. So what's the rule? Okay. So even though we talked about it, say what do we do? Does when we collect after we're going to sell a guy's thing already? Do we have to leave him his basic needs? We have to leave him a bed and a mat, etc. And do we make a gzer shava? Do we apply the gzer shava of micha? Both places talking about what becoming poor. In both places it talks about becoming poor. By Arachin it says if he's poor, and by Abachov when it comes to lending money, it says when your brother becomes poor, you have to support him and help him lend. Okay, so do we compare by the way of gzer shava and say the same rule that applies by evaluating, leaving the basics by when you're collecting by Arachin? You have to leave the guy the basics when you collect a debt. Pashma, come, I'll bring your proof. To Shoch Rabin Bagarte, Rabin wrote the following letter. He says, Sha'alti l'chol rabbasai v'lo I asked all my rabbis this halacha. Do we evaluate by a balchov and leave him his basics? And they didn't tell me a thing. But nevertheless, the truth is I do have a way to figure it out. Why? Because there was I have an official question, query was answered, and from the way it was discussed, it was understood by definition what the halach is. So, a person says, "I'm going to give $100 to upkeep of the temple." That's not arachin, right? So there, if he doesn't have the money, he have to pay when he gets it. Maushi Sadru. In that case, though, when they're going to collect, do they leave him his basics or not? Okay. Rav Yaakov Mishmei, the Rav Pada, Rav Yuri Mishmei, the Ilfa. These two rabbis, they said, "Kavachomer b'balchov." I can learn it as a kavachomer from Bachov. Ma Bachov shemachzirim ein mesadrin. Okay, if we see when it comes to collecting a debt, that what? Where the whole time before the 30 days that you're going to sell, the guy needs his security back. We give it back. Ein mesadrin. Nevertheless, even though we're very nice to him, but when it comes time to sell, we sell. So then now look, but that point is done already. So you see from the way we discussed it, it was a given. That we don't, like Rosh Gamliel, it was given that we don't evaluate. We don't, once it's time to pay, we don't leave him anything. Hegdesh, okay, She'ein Marzir, when it comes to Hegdesh, here in the case of a guy says, I'll give you 100. where there was no rule of even of having to return, even having to return the security. And certainly we're not so lenient to return the security. We certainly the same way. We certainly don't evaluate the same. We don't. So that was clear. But it was a given that by collecting a debt that we don't evaluate, like Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Yochanan Amar, he says, but now he's quoting the end. Rav Yochanan said, "What neder be'erkacha?" He says, "No." He says, "You're making a mistake." When it came to the erkacha, it actually combined two words, neder and erkacha. Okay, to show you what. So that's a way of putting an apposition with an a, putting in the erkacha, donating from a set menu, and the neder, which is not a set menu. Okay, ma berach misavjon. So just like when you make a set menu, the value when you say the erkacha of a man, of a woman, of this, that, we do evaluate. Therefore, any case of donating to the base of English, even just said if he's giving $100, you also evaluate before you take it. Okay, but that was the opinion. But 1 second. But right now we established our point though. What he did was he did have a tradition that we don't evaluate when it comes to collecting a debt when it's finally time to sell. Just not, but let's continue. But the opinion that held that we learn a kal v'chomer from a Baal Chov. Okay. He says, what is he going to do with the word neder? Well, doesn't he have to see that neder? The word neder by the Erko equated it, and therefore by any donation to the base of English, you should say not like he said that was, but he says $100. We don't evaluate. We should. He says no. He says I still don't hold the why. That is a comparison. It's a comparison for a different rule. That is that we evaluate limbs on the basis of their importance. And what is the point? Erkachos, the word nefashos is there. Okay, what is it? Okay, no, it's ma'erachin neither mechlodo. When it comes to rachin, everything is evaluated according to according to the value, which is life, and everything has to do with life. No, so if a guy donates the value of the erkachot, let's say of a heart or a head, whatever it is, you understand that where a person's life is dependent upon it, so then he has to pay the value of the whole body. And if he says a limb with life is not dependent, like an arm or whatever it is, then he owes nothing because it's meaningless. By rachin, it has to be life or death. So as hegdesh, when it comes to hegdesh, okay, the same thing. Let's say a guy donated an arm. The difference is what? So they say what? Also, he's going to learn what? Also by hegdesh that we're going to evaluate according to its value, and therefore what? If it's a limb that life depends on, he has to pay the value of the whole body. If it's a limb that life doesn't depend on, he has to pay the value of the limb, but like a slave. How much would a slave sell with an arm? How much would a slave sell without an arm? But so it's not a complete. The Tosis has to work out why you can like a half comparison. But that's what it comes out. But either way, we worked it. Okay, now the Gemara continues. But 1 second. Let me just say 1 second. Okay, he says, if you wanted to, you base your whole learning. You told me what? Well, if by a Baal Chov, we don't certainly by a donation of $100 based on English, we don't evaluate. What do you mean? Why don't you learn the other way? Why is it given that we don't evaluate for a creditor? Okay, for when taking a debt. The other way, why don't you learn a kal v'chomer from arachim where we do evaluate and say all the more so by collecting a debt you should evaluate. Why? When it comes to what? When it comes to the set menu of arachin, shein machzirin, where there's no such laws. We'll see. There's no such law that if he took a surety, the basic leadership, they don't have to give it back when he needs it. Mesadrin, nevertheless, even though we're not so lenient. Okay, when it comes to giving back, we're still lenient in terms of evaluating. Baal Chov, when it comes to taking a debt, shemachzirim, where the rules are clear, we're lenient. And when the creditor takes the surety, he has to give it back as long as the guy needs it within the 30 days. Eino din isn't all the more so if we're lenient during the 30 days. And a din shemasadrin, certainly with the end of 30 days, when you're going to sell, you have to be lenient and what? And just like arachin, you're going to have to evaluate and leave him his basic needs. Amar Kroy says, no, I'll tell you why you don't have to say it. Instead of saying what? If he's too poor to give the evaluation, to give the erkacha, it says imachu. If he is too poor, who? Him, below Baal Chov, and not somebody else. So it's only him you take into consideration, but not a debtor. So what about the other opinion? The opinion that, well, what the opinion that, let's say the opinion like the Tanna Kama that holds in our Mishnah that you do have to evaluate. So what are they going to do with the word who? It says him and him by arachin you evaluate and not by someplace else. Okay, what is he going to do with the word who? He says, no, it's for a different reason. This was the B'machuso. It has to be that he's poor. Mitchila Batsofo. He has to be poor from the time that he pledged it until the coin comes to take it. Knows, but if he's poor, and when he gives it, but when the coin shows up to collect it, he's rich, then he has to pay.
Now, what about the other way around?
The other way, what he's rich and he became poor. I'm going to double check.
Because from here it implies.
Yeah, it sounds like it's out, but let's double check. I don't know. We'll check. Okay, okay. One second. That's the other way. Let's investigate the other way. When it comes to Hegdesh, why don't we say what? Why you tell me what? That by Arachin, within 30 days, if the Beis Hamikdash took a surety, he doesn't have to give it back when he needs it. Why don't you learn a Kabbalah that he does have to as a Kabbalah but when it came to collecting a debt, Shein Masadrin Lo, we were not so lenient after 30 days, and we don't leave him his basic needs according to Rav Shem Gamliel. Machzir, and nevertheless, even according to Rav Shem Gamliel, certainly you have to give it when he needs it within the 30 days. Hegdesh Shemasadrin, when it comes to Hegdesh, where we do at the end, where we do take into account his basic needs, and Odin Shemachzir, and all the more so, you should have to give it back in the 30 days based on English. The answer is what? It says, when it comes to giving back the surety, the pasuk says what? He's going to go to sleep. When you give him back in pajamas, he's going to sleep in his night garment, and he's going to bless you. Who's the creditor? Who's the creditor by Arach? And it's God. Hashem doesn't need a blessing. Says, hello? What do you mean? What are you talking about? We do bless Hashem. The Aksiv is written. Okay, it says you have to bless God. So we do whatever. You're right. It makes no sense. You're right. It makes no sense. But we bless God. Hello, Amakra. The pasuk says, he says, but there's a different reason. He says because it says it's going to be tzedakah. Now by Hashem doesn't take tzedakah, and Hashem doesn't give tzedakah either. And therefore, what Mishan Sarich tzedakah, it has to be the tzedakah that the creditor, in this case, God is in the parsha tzedakah. You'll say Hegdesh Shein Sarich tzedakah, which is the with the exclusion of Hegdesh, when Hashem is the collector. Who's not in the parsha tzedakah, there's no rule of returning.
Can I use this pasuk when Shul asks me?
Yeah. Okay. This I have to discuss another time. The idea of bracha, if you think about it, is shocking. If you understand what a bracha is, the very idea that the Torah told us to bless God is a very shocking thing. Some Rishonim actually wrote that they didn't want to talk about it. I think the Sefer HaChinuch, basically, he's afraid to talk about it. But the other Rishonim would take it, hit it head on when you have the Rashba, etc. And other places, when we shaykh, and they go, we'll get there, I'll talk about it. Eshkei Rabbi Baravu Elio. One time, Rabbi Baravu found Elio and Navi
in the grave.
The koi, where was he standing? He was standing in the Gaisha graveyard. Amarle, so Rabbi Baravu said to him, he's got Elio and Navi. He's like, can I ask him all his outstanding homework? He says, listen, he says, what's the rule when you collect from a Bacho? What's the halacha? Do we have to leave him his basic needs or not? Is the halacha like the Tanakama or like Rosh Hashanah? Amalei said to him, Gomar Micha Marachim. He says, yeah. He says, you have to use. You learn Xer Shaba from a poor from a set menu donation to the Beis Hamikdash. Gabi Arachim, see by the set menu it says, if he's too poor, to give the money. Gabi Balchov, even by also by a creditor, it says, when your brother becomes poor, you have to help him and lend him money, etc. So you see, therefore, that we do have a Gzera Shava, and we do apply Gzera Shava here. That just like we have to evaluate the basic needs by Arachim, we have to evaluate the basic needs by collecting a debt. Okay, I ask him another question. How do we know that a naked person shouldn't give truma? It really means naked person can't give truma because he can't say a bracha. That's the point. How do we know he can't? To see, because it's written, because when you're making a bracha, Hashem shouldn't see any nakedness in you, and therefore what? So you're not allowed to make a bracha when you're naked. That's the source. Since Hashem's not allowed to see nakedness when you're talking to him, or when you're talking about Hashem, so you can't. Therefore, you can't take the truma. You can't make the bracha on truma when you're naked.
But Hashem created Adam HaRishon completely naked.
So I'm going to answer you also in kind, and it's like this. In theory, we don't make brachas in the bathroom, right?
Right.
No. In theory, why shouldn't I be able to? If the person is broad-minded, and just like Hashem makes all the beautiful world, the Alps, right, and he makes Hawaii, he makes also the bathroom. Why shouldn't I say Hashem's name? He also makes that place.
Yeah, but you said outside.
So the answer is like this. And like you said, by Adam Rishon. So Adam Rishon was of a stature, not necessarily physical. So he saw me so far, and so forth. Adam Rishon had a grasp of the entirety of the creation. So the truth is that the question is really correct. In
But
theory,
he also wasn't naked. It was covered with scales.
the question is, the question is, in theory, if we were conscious when we were in the bathroom of the whole universe at once, imagine you're in the bathroom at the same moment. You have also in your conscious mind the fresh snow on the Alps, the waves rushing to shore in Hawaii, the fruits growing in the orchards, etc. And your mind had a conscience of all the things together. You could, in theory, you could make a bracha on the bathroom because the bathroom would be it take its place in the grand creation of God. But since the facts are that we're human beings, and when you're in the bathroom, where are you? You're in the bathroom, and that's what you smell, and that's what you see, etc. And we're not like Adam Arishon, and certainly not like Hashem. So even though in theory, you understand, Hashem made us this way, etc., we should be able to, but we're human. We can't assume the godly perspective because we don't have it. And therefore, it's also to make a bracha on it. So that's the answer. Yeah, but you hear what I'm saying. You hear what I'm saying. The point that's for a different reason. But you hear the point I'm saying. And you can't presume a godly perspective. A lot of the modern stuff that they do, the New Age Judaism. There a lot of things are wrong. They're wrong. It's stuff from outside. It's the Goyish stuff they're talking. You see, and one of the things that the Jews don't do is, even though we're aware that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a reality, whatever it means, we can't understand. We're not presumptuous. We don't make believe we're God. You understand that we recognize that we're human beings. And I'll tell you this is very important. I'm writing on the subject. I'm not late. Don't worry. You'll see the Bachei Asharis complain against the Jews, and they never win. Why? Because the human perspective, the perceived reality of humans wins over the abstracted reality. Rosh Hashanah, the Bachei Asharis. What do you mean? What's going on? How come the Jews aren't saying Hallel? They're complaining about the Jews. What does it say? Yeah, but what are you talking about? You're angels. You know what you're talking about. The books of life and death are open. What do you want to dance and sing? It's not human. It's not a human thing. Here in brachas we learn when you have a good thing that's going to be bad is going to be good. You don't worry about it. We take the perceived reality, and that's what the halacha follows, because we're human. That's what the Torah teaches us. We don't make believe that we have God's reality and then do the halacha way. Yeah, and that's why I can't stand it. People have bad news. The halacha is that when people have bad news, they make a bracha and they say Hashem, even though it's hard. They recognize that God. Yeah, but they don't make Hatov Ametiv and say, "Oh Hashem, it's so." Wait. They don't say, "Oh, thank you Hashem, it's wonderful that I'm suffering." They have to have the same passion, but they say Baruch Dayanim. They don't make a bracha Hatov Ametiv on bad news. We don't make believe that we're in a different reality. Jews, when they're sad, they cry. We don't dance and sing. Oh, it's wonderful that we're suffering. We cry. We cry because that's Hashem. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at you. But that's the other point I'm telling you. So that's
my schedule.
Don't wait.
My last penny the day I die. So don't think.
But my point. What?
What's with Tselem Elokim?
So the Tselem Elokim means that the Tselem Elokim essentially means that we have free choice. It means that there's something in us that is, even though there's no way. There's nothing. There's no shared. It's impossible. Because Baruch Hu is not of this universe. Hashem is not in the world of the world. Hashem made the world. The world is created. God is not. God. If what we do is exist, God doesn't exist. Do not go out here saying Rabbi Green says there's no God. I never said such a thing. I know. But if what we do is called existing, what God does is something else. It's not existing. There's no comparison. But there's something that's incredible, and it's the foundation of all existence. It's the mystical foundation of all existence. What is it? Because Baruch Hu made a thing that we learn. It's a person has an ability to make a choice, which is the most shocking thing in the world. We should be like clay in the hands of the potter. And Hashem said no, and he let it happen. And I want to explain something. I'll tell you quickly, and I'll explain it later another time in depth. But I'll give you an example. You see here, there is something about us that is akin to the thing that made us, and that's this. Yeah, he said, if free choice is really free, when you make a choice, what makes you make it? There can only be one answer: nothing. If it's free, if you're making that choice because of something, if something is forcing you to make it, it's not free. It's free. So free choice the real free choice is mamish. There's nothing that makes you make the choice. Okay, so where does your free choice come from? Nowhere. In order to be free, it has to come from nowhere. Where does God come from? Nowhere. There's something about the human being that's a Tselem Elokim. You know what I'm saying? That's a Tselem Elokim. It means that
means that this is the mystical foundation of all existence. What I'm telling you now, this is it. This is the whole shirt and show. That there's something about the way God created human beings. You understand that the impossible happened. There's something about us that comes from nowhere, and even though we were created, there's a chance that it's as if we could make the pleasure of being undependent, of a thing that comes from nowhere, not relying on anything. God gave it to us. Life is unfathomable. What in theory could only belong to God. In a certain respect, once God made us, it's as if we made ourselves. Yeah, you can't make the atoms, you can't make, but since the free choice, it really is completely independent. That I don't know, it would be beyond all ability to grasp, makes us a Tzelem Elokim, an image of God. You know, there's something about us that partakes. But anyway, coming back to ground over here, come back to earth. The point I'm trying to tell you is that the answer is that we do not presume that we are God. We're bound by time. We're bound by place. You see, and where we are is where we are. And we don't say, "Oh, yes, we know God. Everything God does is good." But when bad things happen, we cry. You don't go to a Jew and tell him, "Oh, don't cry. Everything is good." God, wait, stop it. The person's crying. You should hold them and make them feel better. Don't tell them, "Oh, it's all fine." It's not fine. It's not fine. They're in pain. They're crazy. I hate when they do that stuff. It's like these people. The guy got a disease. They're giving him garlic. The guy needs to go to the doctor. Stop it. You're killing the guy. They give him the garlic and the brewer's yeast. Stop it. The guy's not go take him to the doctor and help him. You don't tell a person suffering. You don't tell him, "Oh, don't worry, it's all fine." That's how you tell a person. You have to help the person, make him feel better. You say, anyway, so we don't presume God's reality. That's the point. It's true, and that's why here God knows I'm naked. Here, why don't I daven come to shul with no clothes on? The answer is because
the people here do.
Yeah, the answer is because I don't have God's perspective. I'm a human. And I see nakedness, and therefore, for me to come to shul with no clothes on, God sees through my clothes. But if I would come with no clothes, that's a chutzpah. That's disrespectful, and that's why you have to put on nice clothes to come to shul. You know, so what does God care?
You keep saying things over. Say that again.
I just said it. You have to come to shul in nice clothes.
Say it a third time.
Okay, come to shul in nice clothes. I agree. But my point is, what's my point? Because you're right. God, that's not affecting God. But how do you show up with not nice clothes on? What do you hear on Shabbos? You think Hashem cares what you wear?
No, but you
have to care. How you're coming in front of God. You agree? You're having God is coming to you as a Shabbos guest. Hashem's coming for Shabbos. You put on nice clothes. What are you crazy? And the litmus test is, by the way, here. What happens if for some reason you can't go to shul that Shabbos? You hang around in your pajamas and you put your Shabbos clothes on. That's your fine. I'm telling you, that's between you and yourself. I was just saying, but that's the litmus test. You understand? If you know what you're doing. If you have to stay home for Shabbos, good. You have to stay home. You stay in your pajamas. You stay in your pajamas.
We had an Nichols bris.
Yeah.
And we did it. We dialed in.
Yeah.
It wasn't Zoom. It was just vocal.
Yeah.
But we put Big Day Shabbos on.
Yeah.
Because it was a bris.
Yeah, the cover.
That's right. This is not the same. It was serious, but it was a joke. But it was serious. There was a guy when I was a kid. There was a guy who was so respectful of performers. This is back in the old days.
Of what?
Of performers. When he put a record on the record player, he put his tie and his coat on out of respect for the person that was performing.
That's already a
No, I told you it's a joke. But he was an innocent guy. He was a very naive guy. But for him, out of respect for the person who was performing for him, obviously it was ridiculous. A piece of plastic. But that's not the point. Okay, anyway. But there's a mushroom. Okay, so he says afterwards. Anyway, that's the answer.
After all the halacha questions he asked.
Oh, so now he says, 1 second, but I got a real question. What are you doing in the graveyard? I'm in love. Kohen Umar. We have a tradition that Eliyahu was Pinchas. He's a Kohen. He says, my time at Kohen Mar. He says, but basically, why are you standing in the graveyard? Remember, a Kohen is forbidden to become tummy from a corpse. And if a person is under the roof of the corpse, or even if his own body roofs over the corpse, he becomes tamei. Or if he steps on it, so Kesora is also going to be Amar Alei. So Eliyahu said to him, he says, Lo Masni Martash. What's the matter? He says, you never learned the sixth order of the Shas? Taras, the Tanya, we know we have a brisa though. Now the truth is he did know the sixth order. He knew the Mishnayos and Taras, but he didn't know the brises. The Tanya, because we learned in the brisa, Rav Shimon Yochai says, the graves of a goy does not matami ba'ohel, as it says
Hashem says, "Vetain soni marisi." He says, "I'm going to give my flock, the flock that I feed, that I shepherd, that I feed. Okay, Adam Atem, you are Adam. So you see what Atem Kriyim Adam. You, the Jewish people, are called Adam. Ve'ein Avdei Chacham Kriyim Adam. Avdei Chacham not called Adam. And since the pasuk by Tumah it says Adam ki yamasbal, when Adam dies in an oil, so the rule doesn't apply to a non-Jew." Amar Leisi, he said to him, he said to him, listen, he says, I'm not able to, I'm not expert even in the four that are the four Siddharim, Moed, Nashim, and the Zikin, and Kodshim. Why is Kodshim considered practical? So Rashi says, because when you learn Kodshim, it's also as if you brought the Korban. So for Talmidei Chachamim, even Kodshim is called Lamaisa today. You understand? Because Lamaisa, as you learn the laws of the Korbanos, you're bringing them. So it's also called Lamaisa. He says, Bashita, he says, but if you expect me what in Zeroim and in Taharos to be expert, Matzina, am I going to be expert? Amar, he said to him, Bama, he says, why aren't you expert? You should be expert. What's the problem? Amar Lei said to him, Dechikali Milsa. He says, because I'm poor. He says he's poor and he's busy trying to make a living. So Dabre ba'ayle Gan Eden. So the Yahweh took him and he brought him to Gan Eden. Amar Lei, and he said to him, Pshot Nimach. He said, take your coat off. Tafe, pick a shekel and take Mahani Tafe. Pick and take these leaves and put them in your, take them up. Safa shekel. So he picked them and he took them and he put them into his coat. Okay, Kavi Nafik, when he was in water, we're now walking out of Gan Eden with these leaves. Shama the Kamari, so heard a voice come out and it said, Manko Achol Alme Karabra. Who uses up in this world, the world to come? Who's eating up in this world, the world to come? Like Rabbi Baravua, they say, what is he doing? It's a bad idea. Nafat, so quickly what? He shook out his tal, Shadinu, he threw out all the leaves. He didn't want to take them. I feel hochi, nevertheless, even though he let go of the leaves, I see the smell still went. Yeah, it went into his coat, and the coat had absorbed the smell. Zabne betrays was dinars. Apparently, it smelled so good. He sold it for 12,000 dinars. Upalginu lechas vanase, and divided among his son-in-laws. And people say because he didn't even say he didn't want to even give it to his sons. They say because it's also since there is an inheritance. People say that he would also be considered getting benefit. Rabbanan, okay, so good. So now we got it. Tana Rabbanan, we learn when it comes back to the laws of giving a mashkan, the ish alihu lo tishkav bavoto. He said the pasuk says, but if he's a poor man, don't sleep with his surety. But if he's a rich man, you can't sleep with it. You can't sleep with it. How can it be? My comment, but what do you mean? If you're going to use his pajama, that's ribis. How can you tell me if you took pajamas from a rich guy, you're allowed to sleep in them? It's ribis. You're not allowed to do it. You're taking interest on the loan. She says, no, you make a mistake. It doesn't mean you sleep in them, you sleep with them. Says, the guy's poor, don't go to sleep with his pajamas still by you. But if he's rich, he can sleep with his pajamas still by you, but not in his pajamas. We learn. Now, this here, the way we're going to relearn this price, it's an utter enigma. It self-contradicts twice. If a guy lends his friend money, he's not allowed to take a surety. He doesn't have to give it back to him. If you can't take it, so what does he have to give back? He says, and he transgresses. You just said he doesn't have to give it back. So how does he transgress? By not giving it back. If he doesn't have to give it back. It's like what's this? If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. It makes no sense. The whole thing makes no sense. My comment. So what on earth? How do you make sense? So the first way to make sense of the enigma is to simply say that the brisa that would just confuse the sign. Instead of saying he not obligated, he say he is obligated. He says, my comment, this is what it says. Amrav Sheshas, Hachi comment says, if you lend your friend money, you cannot take a surety without basted. Beam Mishkana, if he did take a surety, if he did do it, then instead of reading Eina Chayav, just correct it, change the sign Chayav, he's obligated. Okay, and that makes sense. And then over, and once he's obligated to give it back, all the different rules, all the different laws that we learned, the negative precepts he transgresses by not giving it a seifa. So it's talking about the end. He says, but once he did it, he has to give it back, and if he doesn't, he transgresses. Well, listen, it's too much. You cannot. That is too much of a correction. That's outrageous. To say a brisa is still good, and it said absolutely the opposite. It makes no sense. You have to rather read it missing words but not changing the sign. If a guy lent money to his friend, he's not allowed to take
a surety without based in. Be mishkano, but if he did take it chayv lachzilo, you have to add the words. And if he did it, he does have to give it back. But medvar, when does he have to give it back? Mishkano shelo b'shalvoso. That's only when he took a surety, not at the time of the loan. That's all the rules we're learning up to now. That's all the rules of taking a surety for payment, right? Aval mishkan, they said aval mishkan b'shas alvaso. But if he got the mashkan at the time of the loan, no, the loba came, the borrower comes and gives him the thing. And the chayv lachzir, when the borrower gives it to you at the time of the loan, you do not have to give it back. Why? Because you remember the pasuk used the word, we learned this yesterday, chovel. The word chovel means what? That you're taking it against the guy's will, to something. When I say to something against the guy's will, this when the guy shows up and gives it to you, that's not called chovel. It's not. There's no against his will in it.
Isn't that like Riverstone?
No,
You're just holding it. Just holding it.
Oh, okay.
You're holding it. Yeah, okay. And therefore what? So since so he and when it says that he transgresses, you have to skip over a ratio. Let's go back to the first case. Okay, the first case when you took a surety not at the time of the loan.
Foreclosure.
Yes. Tani Rav Shiz become a Rava. He taught the following brisa. It sounds backwards. When it says what? By the time that when you have to give it back to him all day long until the sun goes down, and he says Zoksu Slider. That's the pajama. That doesn't make any sense. Hashiv Tashiva Savot she'll surely give back the surety when the sun goes down. Okay, Zoksu Shiom. That's the daytime one. It's backwards. The daytime one you have to give back when it's night. Amarle says no. He says you have to. He says the here when it's you have to read it like he said. Why does a guy need the daytime garment at night? Why does he need the nighttime garment at the day? Amarle says Asmaye. He said, what should I erase it from my compendium? Amarle lo. He said no. You can leave it and you have to re-understand it. Well, you just have to re-understand it. I mean what? Instead of understanding what that we were talking about as we usually do, that the nighttime garment is the one that the borrower uses at night. And the daytime garment is one that the borrower uses in the daytime. No, just look at it from the side of the lender. Okay, Hachikamer is what it's saying. Adbo Hashemesh Teshivenelo, when you have to give it back to him all day long until sundown. Zog Sus Yom. Okay, well, that is what that's the daytime garment. What? That you're allowed to keep at night. So the thing that the creditor keeps at night, he has to give back all day long. What's he allowed to keep at night? The daytime garment. When we said the nighttime garment, you have to give back in the day. We mean the one that the creditor keeps at night, he gives back in the day. When it says give back the surety when the sun goes down, that's the nighttime garment. Why do they call it the daytime garment? Because the daytime garment, though it's the nighttime garment that the creditor is allowed to keep all day long. So we said it's the nighttime garment. Okay, it's the daytime garment. It means the daytime garment, which is the daytime with one he's allowed to keep all day, which is the nighttime garment, he has to give back when the sun goes down. So it's just changing the perspective. And this, by the way, is extreme. And just I'll tell you quickly because I got 1 minute. If you remember this trick all over the Shas, you'll have an easy time. And that is whenever there's more than one party involved in a transaction, whenever you're confused, remember to look at it from both perspectives, and often you'll solve the problem. We often solve the problem. And so that you have to just see. They said 2 parties is not one world. Everybody, when you're not mature, you assume that 2 people are in the same world. 2 people are not in the same world. And today I have to deal with this every day. I have families, Rahmanis, and God bless them. Yeah, you have families who they want to be from and good, and they're wonderful, but they're torturing their children. Why? Because they're not in the same house as their child. They go to Israel, they move into the deepest, darkest Bnei Brak, and for them, they're completely divorced. They grew up in America. There's no secular universe. There's nothing. And for them, every minute in Bnei Brak, they're in Gan Eden. There's no world. There's nothing. But their children are living in a prison. For them, every minute, they're contrasting. You understand the unpleasant world that they came from. So for them, their cut off world is a Gan Eden. But their kid is suffocating. The kid's suffocating. So they're not remembering. What do you think? Because you live in the same house, the kid has the same perspective as you. The kid's living in a prison, and you're not. You're in Gan Eden, and your kid's in Gehenna. I'm not saying God forbid he shouldn't do the Torah. Don't misunderstand me. But you have to, in every transaction, you have to consider that maybe the 2 people don't have the same perspective. It's so important. Okay, I both have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the last penny gets spent, so my kids don't have to make it.
That's the old joke. What book do you make when your mother drives off the cliff in your brand new cataract?
Baruch Hashem.
You say Diana Miss on the car. Your mother-in-law.
Are we ever?
What's the
expected to
difference
see something
between
from
a
Hashem's
vulture
perspective?
and a Jewish mother?
in the
Oh, yeah, the
simple way.
vote wasn't
Metaphorically.
being dead.
Metaphorically. Another, like it says, they learn after Kamocha. So one of the opinions is love your neighbor like yourself. Yeah, love, treat Hashem the way you would want to be treated. So since Hashem, how would you want to be treated? You treat Hashem the way you would want to be treated. And metaphorically, you relate to Hashem as a king, you relate to Hashem as a father. But those are all metaphors. God forbid that there's no metaphoric sense. We do take that perspective metaphorically.
Yeah, well, even the time where I can actually say Poseach es Yadecha.
Yes. Metaphorically, we do. Exactly. Metaphorically, we do. Exactly.
But the thing is, with that always bothered me, especially Baruch Hashem Mavorach. To me, it never made any sense.
Yeah.
And you look in the Chumash, the way Baruch used to be to bow. So I always say to my mind,
comes from the Hebrew word.
let me finish. So that don't mean that bless Hashem and then serve Hashem. So save Hashem, the one is to be served. Nobody else. That's him.
So Mitzvah Hashem,
that's
stay tuned. But we're going to come back.
also
We're going to
use
come back to brachos. Come back to brachos, and we see the whole thing is right there in brachos. Yeah.